The last time I saw my son's front door up close was Saturday, April 9th at 10:02 a.m. I remember the time because the car clock in my 2011 Camry is stuck 3 minutes fast, and I always correct in my head. Old habits. You spend 40 years wiring buildings and checking voltages twice, you start noticing every number around you whether you want it or not. It was one of those early spring mornings that can't decide what it is yet. The sun was out, but there was still a sting in the air. I sat in the driver's seat a minute longer than necessary, hands on the steering wheel, watching my breath fog the windshield and then fade. In the passenger seat, a blue gift bag leaned against a folded blanket, tissue paper crinkled, a plush dinosaur peeking over the edge. Leo likes dinosaurs. Or at least he did 9 months ago, the last time I saw him. I unscrewed the lid from my scratched steel thermos and took a sip of coffee. It had cooled on the drive over, but I've drunk worse. Instant coffee, 2 spoons, boiled in a dented kettle older than my son. I never told him that. He likes things new. New phones, new cars, new friends. New father figures, apparently. I wiped my hand on my pants leg, picked up the gift bag, and opened the car door. My knee cracked the way it does now when the weather changes. 72 isn't ancient, but stairs and low couches have started making their opinions known. Adam's townhouse complex sat in one of those subdivisions that all look cloned from the same blueprint. Beige siding, small porches, decorative trees that had never seen a forest. Every driveway had a car less than 5 years old. There were plastic tricycles and electric scooters scattered around. A basketball hoop tilted slightly forward like it was tired. I locked the Camry. Habit, even though no one here would look twice at a 12-year-old sedan with a duct-taped bumper, and started up the short walkway. Adam's place was Unit 3B. I'd helped him move in the weekend when they closed. That was 3 years and roughly $45,000 of my money ago. The front door was dark blue now. They'd repainted. Little white wreath with fake flowers hung in the center. There was one of those smart doorbells with a camera, the kind that watches your every hesitation. I took a breath, straightened my jacket, and pressed the bell. I heard it chime inside, a bright little melody. For a moment, I let myself picture it. Leo's small feet pattering on the hardwood, the way he'd squeal "Grandpa" and barrel into my legs. I'd lift him up, smell that cereal and shampoo kid smell, and for a second my chest wouldn't feel like an empty cupboard. Footsteps. Not running, not excited. Measured adult. The door opened. Adam filled the doorway like he owned the air on both sides. 39 years old, solid gym shoulders under a fitted Henley, jaw tight. He let his beard grow out a bit, patches of gray at the chin. Made him look older, more serious. Or maybe I was just seeing him differently. "Dad," he said. No smile, no warmth. Just my name stripped down to one syllable. "Hey, Adam." I shifted the bag in my hand, suddenly aware that my jacket smelled faintly of fried onions from last night's dinner. Traffic was light. I'm a little early. Our eyes flicked at the same time to the doorframe, where the faint outline of a child's safety gate was visible behind him. I heard a cartoon's high-pitched music from deeper inside. Something about that sound made my throat tighten. I brought something for Leo. I lifted the bag a bit. The dinosaur's plush head bobbed foolishly. Adam exhaled through his nose. Not quite a sigh, not quite a laugh. "Yeah," he said slowly. "About that." He stepped out, pulling the door almost closed behind him, leaving just a slice of the house visible. A hallway, the edge of a gray couch, a pair of tiny sneakers tossed near the wall. "You can't come in," he said. The words were so flat, I didn't understand them at first. They just lay there between us, like tools on a workbench, waiting to be named. "Sorry," I managed. "You can't come in," he repeated, enunciating like I was hard of hearing, which, ironically, I am in one ear. "It's not a good time." I frowned. "Adam, you said Thursday night that today was fine point 10 o'clock, remember? You texted me the address just in case I forgot." He shrugged, eyes flicking past me to the parking lot like he was waiting for someone else to arrive. "That was before," he said. "Before what?" He hesitated, then shifted his weight. I noticed he was standing, so the door stayed mostly shut, his arm braced against it. Like he thought I might try to push my way in. "Chalcedo isn't think it's a good idea," he said. "You coming around Leo right now?" My mouth went dry. Why? What did I do? He tightened his jaw. This isn't. Look, I don't want to do this on the porch. You already are, I said quietly. He stared at me, and for a moment I saw my own eyes in his face, smaller and colder. You need to leave, Dad, he said. Okay, just leave. Something in my chest gave way. A small internal crack, like when you drop a mug in the sink and think it survived until you see the hairline fracture. Behind him, from the narrow slice of hallway, I saw movement. A small shape in dinosaur pajamas peeking around the corner. Messy dark hair. A soft, puzzled grandpa that punched right through my ribs. Adam turned, blocking the gap completely. Go back to the living room, buddy, he called over his shoulder, voice abruptly bright. Grandpa's just leaving. That just hurt almost as much as the rest. I took a half step forward. Adam, please. I drove 40 minutes. I haven't seen him in months. I brought. He held up a hand, palm out. I'd seen that gesture before, years ago, when he was in high school, and I wanted me to stop talking in front of his friends. Don't make this harder than it has to be, he said. You know your episodes have been getting worse. You keeping track of your meds? Chelsea's been reading about early dementia, and... My what? I blinked. He looked past me again, scanning the courtyard. Just please. We can talk about this later. I've got a call in 10 minutes. Leo's got a class at 11, and Chelsea's parents are coming by. It's not the time. I stood there with a ridiculous blue bag in my hand, listening to him list priorities in which I didn't even make the top 3. Adam, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. I have never had an episode in my life. I forget where I put my glasses sometimes. That's what happens when you've lived long enough to watch every president since Johnson screw something up. He frowned. You don't remember yelling at Leo on FaceTime last month? Saying things about his mom about money? I blinked again. I hadn't FaceTimed with Leo last month. I hadn't FaceTimed with him since Christmas. Because no one picked up when I called. Exactly, he said, as if my confusion proved something. This is what I'm talking about. You don't even remember. He shifted his body, clearly done with the conversation. You need to leave, he repeated. We'll figure out the financial stuff later. I'll call you. The financial stuff. The words slid past each other in my head and stuck there. I opened my mouth to ask, but the look on his face had shifted. It was the look people gave me in the grocery store when I fumbled for the right card in my wallet, a mix of impatience and discomfort, like they felt guilty for being annoyed. In the end, pride did what anger couldn't yet manage. It made my spine straighten. It made my fingers tighten on the gift bag handles instead of reaching for his sleeve. All right, I said. My voice sounded hoarse to my own ears. If that's what you want. His eyes flickered just for a second. Maybe he heard something in my tone. Maybe he didn't. Good, he said. I didn't wait to hear what he'd do. I turned, walked back down the little path, the gravel popping under my shoes. The spring air felt much colder. By the time I reached the Camry, my hand was shaking so badly I had to set the gift bag on the roof to fish my keys out. The dinosaur's stitched smile stared at me upside down. I sat in the driver's seat, closed the door, and just sat. The world outside the windshield blurred slightly, whether from the faint drizzle starting up again or my eyes, I couldn't say. The cartoon music from inside their house had stopped. My ears rang with a silence that sounded a lot like being erased. That's when I heard someone calling. Mr. Miller. Hey, excuse me, sir, Mr. Miller. I glanced up in the rearview mirror. A man in his 30s was jogging across the parking lot toward my car, waving one hand. Short dark hair, hoodie jeans, sneakers squeaking on the wet asphalt. I recognized him vaguely from my single previous visit, the guy from the unit next door, always unloading gym equipment from his trunk. He reached my window, breath puffing in little clouds. I hesitated, then hit the button. The window slid down with a tired electric whine. Yeah, I asked. He leaned on the door frame, catching his breath. Up close he was younger than I thought, maybe early 30s. There was a wedding band on his finger and smudges on his sleeve that suggested kids and markers. Sorry, he said. I saw you, well, I heard. He grimaced. I'm Tom. I live in 3A. I've seen you around. George, I said automatically. He nodded. Yeah, I know. Adam's dad. Once that sentence would have warmed me. Now it just sat there like a stone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, Tom rushed on, glancing back at the row of townhouses. Sound carries on these porches. And, they had the window cracked the other night. I was taking our trash out, and, look, I know it's none of my business. Most things that start that way, I said, my voice coming out rough, end up being exactly somebody's business. That pulled a quick, surprised huff of a laugh from him. It died just as quickly. He lowered his voice. I heard them talking about you, about your house, about money. And then I heard what he said to you just now, and he blew out a breath. It didn't sit right with me. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. What did you hear? I asked. Tom glanced back at Adam's blue door, then at my face, like he was weighing whether to step over some invisible line. It was Thursday night, he said. Around 11, Chelsea had a couple friends over earlier. Everyone was loud. After they left, I was locking up our patio door and I heard, not all of it, but enough. Adam was saying something like, once the refinance clears, we're done with him. I'm not letting Leo grow up around that kind of negativity. My stomach dropped, slow and heavy. Refinance, I repeated. Yeah, Tom said. He was telling her about paperwork, about how the bank doesn't care who signs as long as the right boxes are checked. Chelsea laughed and said, worst case, he doesn't even remember signing. Everybody thinks he's losing it anyway. Then they clinked glasses. I remember that sound. It pissed me off. He paused, eyes flicking over my face, probably measuring the impact of each word as it landed. They mentioned your address, he added quietly. Maple Street, the little yellow house with the ramp. That's yours, right? I felt like someone had reached into my chest and plugged my arteries with ice. Yes, I said. That's mine. Tom swallowed. He said something about finally putting that equity to work, and we carried him long enough. Now it's his turn to carry us. My hands, gnarled and spotted as they are, still know how to hold a live wire. I know that feeling, the awareness that one wrong move, one wrong touch, and everything burns. That's what my blood felt like then. Anything else? I asked, surprised by how steady I sounded. Tom hesitated. Chelsea joked about telling people you have memory issues, so no one questions it. She said, I'm sorry, this is ugly, but she said, if he ever protests, we just say he forgot signing. Old people mix things up all the time. Nobody's going to take his word over ours. He stared at me, uncomfortable. I shouldn't be telling you this, he said. But when I saw him shut the door in your face just now, he trailed off. For a few seconds, all I could hear was my own breathing and the muffled thud of a basketball somewhere in the complex. The gift bag rustled faintly on the passenger seat with every tremor in my hands. Thank you, I said finally. Tom blinked. You're not mad? At me, I mean. Oh, I'm mad all right, I said. Just not at the man who had the decency to run after me. Something in my tone made him straighten. He shifted his weight. Look, if you need. I don't know, a witness or something. I can. I might, I said. But not today. I picked up the gift bag and turned it slowly in my lap, the dinosaur's stitched eyes looking up at me, clueless. If I were you, Tom, I added, I'd make sure any documents in that house with your name on them stay where you can see them. His mouth twitched in something like a grim smile. Yeah, he said. Already ahead of you. He stepped back from the car. I'm sorry, he said again. For what it's worth. So am I replied. But sorry doesn't fix a forged signature. His eyebrows shot up, but I was already raising the window. As I pulled out of the parking lot, rain finally started in earnest, tapping the windshield in a steady, insistent rhythm. In the rearview mirror, I saw Adam step out onto his front stoop, phone in hand, scanning the parking lot. For me, maybe. Or just for an Uber Eats driver. Either way, I kept driving. By the time I merged onto the highway, I had made a quiet, very precise decision. They wanted me to leave? Fine. I'd leave them with exactly what they'd earned. Nothing more and a great deal less. People like to say that when you're old, all you have is time. They're wrong. Time is the first thing people start stealing from you. They take your hours with endless hold music and duplicated forms. They take your days with doctor's appointments, checkups, follow-ups that follow nothing. And if you're very unlucky, they take your years while you sit in a chair by a window watching other people live. Still, There's one thing age does give you. A ledger. All the little entries of who helped whom, and when, and how much. The stupid thing about ledgers is that decent people never bother balancing them. Not until someone shoves the book in their face and says, "Look, I never thought I'd have to do that with my own son." The first big entry in that ledger is dated June 12th, 2014, in my head. That was the day I wrote a check for $30,000 to a catering hall called Evergreen Events. I remember the pen dragging slightly across the numbers. My hand shook then too, but for different reasons. Pride, maybe. Fear of overdrawing. "Dad, are you sure?" Adam had asked, leaning over my shoulder at the kitchen table. My table. The same scarred oak I still eat breakfast at. Chelsea stood behind him, her manicured hand resting on his shoulder like a claim. Her engagement ring threw little shards of light onto my refrigerator door, where my late wife's world's best mom magnet had faded from red to dull pink. "You don't have to," Adam added, but his voice had that hungry edge, the way it always did when he wanted something but wanted to look good wanting it. "Of course I have to," I'd said, trying to make my voice light. "My only son is getting married. I'm not going to let you serve hot dogs in a backyard." Chelsea laughed, high and thin. "We would have been fine with that, Mr. Miller," she said. "We're just so grateful. This is such a blessing." I noticed she said, "would have been," like I hadn't just handed them more than I made in a year when I first started working. They never paid that back. I never asked them to. Weddings are not loans. They're a kind of stupid investment in hope. Entry number 2, September 5th, 2019. I was 66, Margaret had been dead 4 years, and the house on Maple Street felt too big and too small at the same time. Too big for one toothbrush in the bathroom cup. Too small for the quiet that seeped under the bedroom door. Adam sat at the same kitchen table with a different kind of paperwork this time. Mortgage brochures, loan estimates, a manila envelope from Bright Path Home Loans. "We found a place," he said, eyes bright the way they'd been when he was 5 and wanted to show me a Lego spaceship. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, attached garage. Leo will have his own room. Chelsea slid her phone across the table to show me pictures. Glossy hardwood floors, granite countertops, a backyard with a rectangle of struggling grass. The listing price at the bottom made my stomach do a small flip. "It's in Silver Oaks," she said. "Good schools, safe neighborhood, lots of young families. We can swing the monthly payment, but the down payment is," she shrugged, pouting slightly. "Student loans, you know?" I nodded. I knew. I'd been paying mine off when Adam was born. Then again, my loans had been a fraction of what his were. The world had moved the goalposts 10 yards farther every decade. "How much do you need?" I asked. Adam rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, the bank wants 20% down to give us a decent rate. That's 84 grand. He didn't look at me when he said it. "We've got about 39 saved. Chelsea's parents can help a little. Maybe 10, 15. That still leaves us a gap of, I don't know, 30-ish. 30, Chelsea said, in the tone of someone who had calculated this exact amount many times in front of different mirrors. "They didn't save from you. They didn't have to." I looked around my kitchen. The off-white cabinets Margaret had painted herself. The avocado green fridge we'd been threatening to replace since 1998. The magnet shaped like a lighthouse that Leo had liked to pull off and chew on when he'd been over as a baby. "How much is left on your mortgage?" Adam asked suddenly, eyes flicking to the stack of mail near the phone. "Nothing," I said. "House is paid off. Has been for years." Adam's eyebrows rose. "Wow, that's great. You're sitting on a lot of equity, Dad. A lot of equity." He said the way other people say a lot of cookies, like something delightful, consumable. I felt my molars grind a little. "I suppose I am," I said slowly. "Maybe," he said carefully, "you could help us bridge the gap. Just as a loan. We pay you back, obviously. With interest. Right, Chels?" She smiled, teeth very white. "Of course." I'd spent my whole adult life trying to make sure my family never felt the kind of financial fear I grew up with. The kind where you lie awake at night, wondering if the noise on the porch is the landlord or the wind. I didn't want Adam to stand in a hardware store comparing prices on screws the way I used to, counting pennies. So I did what fathers do. I went down to the credit union on September 10th and withdrew $45,000 from my retirement savings. The teller's eyebrows climbed, but she didn't say anything. She just had me sign 3 separate forms and suggested I talk to their financial advisor before making any more large withdrawals. Back at the table, I slid the cashier's check toward Adam. He stared at the number like it was a magic spell. "We'll put you on the title," he said immediately. "So it's really more like your investment property." I waved a hand. "Don't worry about that. This is for your home. For Leo." I squinted at him. "You will pay me back, though. Someday. When you can. Even if it's just a little at a time." "Of course," he said quickly, almost offended. "Come on, Dad. You know I'm good for it." At the closing, the realtor handed around pens and joked about signing your life away. I watched Adam and Chelsea sign lines after line, initial page after page, their young hands moving fast. When they came to the section asking about gift funds, they glanced at each other. "It's a family contribution," Chelsea said lightly. "Everybody helps everybody these days, right?" The loan officer smiled. "Lucky you," she said. "Not everyone has that." For a while after that, I did feel lucky. I watched Leo take his first steps on their new laminate floor, his little socks sliding as he wobbled from couch to coffee table. I took videos on my phone and showed them to anyone who'd stand still long enough at the hardware store. They never did draw up anything formal about repayment. It was always soon, and once we get clear of this credit card debt, and after the next bonus. Life has a way of making soon stretch. Even so, I didn't consider myself their victim then. I considered myself their safety net. The man underneath the trapeze, arms out, ready to catch. It took Tom's words in the parking lot to make me wonder if, somewhere along the way, my son had stopped seeing my outstretched arms and started seeing a pile of cash with legs. When I got home from Silver Oaks that Saturday, the house on Maple Street felt different. Not just empty, compromised. I parked under the same maple tree that had dropped leaves on my hood every fall for 30 years, carried the untouched gift bag up the ramp, and unlocked the front door. The familiar smell, floor cleaner, old books, a faint hint of the garlic I'd cooked with 2 nights ago, wrapped around me. Usually it calms me. That day, it felt like a cover-up. Inside, the answering machine on the little table by the phone was blinking one. No one but telemarketers calls the landline anymore. Adam insists on texting. I press the button. "You have one new message," the machine intoned in its bored robotic voice. A woman's voice came on, overly cheerful in a way of people reading from scripts. "Good afternoon. This message is from Mr. George Miller. This is Jessica from Suncrest Home Loans, calling about your recent inquiry regarding a reverse mortgage on your property at 118 Maple Street. We just wanted to follow up on the information packet we mailed last week and see if you had any questions before we proceed with your application. Please give us a call at..." I stabbed the erase button hard enough to make the machine wobble. The message cut off mid-number. A reverse mortgage. I walked into the kitchen on stiff legs. The packet they'd mailed last week. I hadn't seen anything like that. Bills, sure. Catalogs for things I'd never ordered. A charity envelope with a dime taped to the front. But nothing about a reverse mortgage. I moved to the trash can, tapped the foot pedal, and lifted the lid. The smell of stale coffee grounds and onion skins puffed up. On top of the pile was a torn envelope with my name and address on it in machine print. The return address said Suncrest Home Loans. I reached in, ignoring the wet coffee filter that tried to cling to my wrist, and fished it out. The top of the envelope had been slit open neatly with a knife, not ripped. Inside, a glossy brochure stuck out, damp at one corner. "Unlock the equity in your home." It chirped in blue letters when I slid it out. There was a picture of a smiling, gray-haired couple on a beach, holding hands. I looked around my kitchen. My stove timer blinked 12 o'clock, like it always does after a power flicker. The microwave, a relic from 1997, bore a grease stain shaped vaguely like Florida. A refrigerator magnet, shaped like a smiling tomato, stared at me with cartoon eyes. Unlock the equity in your home. Someone had been unlocking things without my permission. I checked the rest of the mail pile. Electric bill, cable bill, a postcard about a new pizza place, and an envelope from my bank, First River Credit Union. That one was unopened. I slit it with the same butter knife I use for everything. "Dear Mr. Miller," it began. We are writing to confirm receipt of your recent inquiry regarding a home equity line of credit, HELOC, on your property at 118 Maple Street. At your convenience, please contact us at. My vision tunneled for a moment. I sat down hard at the table. A HELOC, a reverse mortgage inquiry. Conversations about refinance in my son's kitchen. Jokes about my memory issues. I put the letter down carefully, smoothing the creases with the side of my hand. The table wobble, caused by a folded napkin under one leg since 2011, felt more pronounced. For the first time in my life, I understood the phrase seeing red and the strange calm that can come with it. Not a storm, a hard, sharp focus like someone had turned down the volume on everything else. I stood up, walked to the phone, and dialed the number on the credit union letter. First River Credit Union. This is Emily. How can I help you today? A chipper voice said. Yes, I replied. I'd like to speak to whoever handles home equity lines of credit. Of course, may I have your name? George Miller. Account ending in 4132. Thank you, Mr. Miller. One moment while I pull that up. Clicking in my ear. Soft hold music, some kind of generic jazz that sounded like it had been recorded in an elevator. Okay. Emily's voice came back. I see here a HELOC inquiry generated on April 5th. We mailed you information on the 6th. Do you have any questions about the program? Yes, I said. One main one. Sure. Who? I asked, and I could hear the steel under my own words. Made that inquiry? There was a pause. I could picture her eyes flicking across the screen. She said slowly. It looks like it was made online through our secure portal. From your account. I don't have online access, I said. Never set it up. Don't trust it. Another pause. Longer this time. Oh, she said. Well, we have a username here that matches your email on file. G.Miller72 @ I don't have email, I said sharply. I still write letters with stamps. Silence. Mr. Miller, she said, her tone different now. Are you saying you did not make this inquiry? Yes, I said. That's exactly what I'm saying. I heard typing. More clicking. A faint sigh. All right, she said, professional now. In that case, I'm going to flag this as potential fraud on your account. We'll freeze any activity related to this HELOC until we can verify everything. I'm also going to recommend you come into a branch as soon as possible with ID so we can review your information in person and update your security settings. In person is fine, I said. I prefer looking people in the eye when they're telling me someone tried to steal my house. She let out a sympathetic little noise. I'm really sorry, Mr. Miller. We'll do everything we can to sort this out. I'm sure you will, I replied. Because if you don't, I'll be doing everything I can somewhere else. After I hung up, I stood for a moment with my hand on the receiver, listening to the dial tone. The ledger in my head had been patient, forgiving, full of scribbled soon S and its family S. That Saturday afternoon, sitting alone in my kitchen with a damp reverse mortgage brochure on the table, I closed it. And for the first time, I started a new page. Monday, April 11th, 9:45 a.m., I was sitting in a vinyl chair at the First River Credit Union on Elm Street, wearing my good jacket. It's not particularly good, just the one with fewer soup stains and all the buttons still attached. But it made me feel less like someone they could easily push aside. The credit union lobby smelled like toner and air freshener. A flat-screen TV on the wall played a loop of advertisements about retirement planning and car loans. A stand in the corner offered free coffee in tiny paper cups. I tried it once years ago and decided it tasted like someone had whispered the word coffee into a cup of hot water. Mr. Miller, a woman's voice called. I looked up. A woman in her late 20s, early 30s, stood by the inner door, a clipboard in hand. She wore a navy blazer with the credit union logo on the pocket and a name tag that said, Rachel, Senior Loan Officer. I stood, my knees popping audibly, and walked over. Right this way, she said, professional smile fixed in place. Her office was small but tidy, with a desk, 2 chairs, and a framed motivational poster about reaching your financial dreams, featuring a mountain no one in this town could afford to climb. So, she said as we sat, Emily mentioned you had some concerns about a home equity line of credit inquiry on your account. Yes, I said. I call them more than concerns. I call them deep suspicions. Her smile tightened a fraction. "All right," she said. "Let's start at the beginning. Can I see your ID?" I handed over my driver's license. She examined it, noted something on her screen, and handed it back. "Can you confirm your address and date of birth for me?" I did. She typed some more. "Okay," she said. "So, according to our system, an online account was created for you on March 28th. The IP address is local. And on April 5th, a HELIC inquiry was submitted through that account." She turned the monitor slightly toward me. On the screen was a form with my name, my address, the value of my home, and a requested line of credit, $160,000. I whistled softly. "That's ambitious," I said. Her mouth twitched. "Did you create this online account?" she asked. "No." "Did you authorize anyone to create an online account for you?" "No." "Do you live with anyone who has access to your personal information?" "My wife used to," I said. "She's been dead 8 years. Unless you offer wireless in the cemetery, I don't think she applied." Rachel blinked, then gave a fleeting, genuine smile. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said softly. "Thank you," I replied. "So unless my late wife suddenly developed a gambling problem, we can agree someone else did this." "It would appear so," she said. She clicked a few more times, then looked at me. "Do you have any family members who might have access to your mail? To your social security number? Your date of birth?" The question sat between us. I could almost see Tom's face in that space, hear his voice repeating refinance and equity. "I have a son," I said slowly. "Adam. He helped me set up direct deposit years ago. You see my bank statements. He knows my address, obviously." "Has he helped you with any financial matters recently?" she asked. I thought about the wedding check, the down payment, the way he'd glanced at my mortgage statements on the table. The little comments, "You should really set up online banking, Dad. It's safer." He always said safer when he meant easier for me. "Not officially," I said, "but he's aware of my situation." Rachel nodded, typing. "We can't make any assumptions without proof," she said. "But given that you did not create this online account yourself or authorize anyone to do so, we will treat it as fraudulent until proven otherwise." She clicked, then turned the screen further toward me. "This," she said, "is the digital version of the HELIC application. It's not the final paperwork, but it's what would have been used to generate it. You see here, my name, typed in a box, my date of birth, social security number, estimated home value. Under intended use of funds, someone had selected debt consolidation and home improvements." I squinted. The letters wavered, then sharpened. "We haven't processed anything beyond this," she said. "So no lien has been placed on your property. No funds have been disbursed. You caught this early." "Lucky me," I muttered. "However," she continued, "I'm more concerned about this." She clicked another tab. A PDF opened, a scan of a form labeled Online Banking Authorization. At the bottom was a signature, my full name, written in a shaky but familiar cursive. It looked like mine, the way I sign receipts. The slant of the G, the loop of the M, except I had never signed it. I sat very still. It felt like looking at a photograph of myself committing a crime I knew I hadn't committed. "Is that your signature?" Rachel asked. "No," I said. "Are you sure? It's okay to be. I've written my own name tens of thousands of times," I said sharply. "I know what it looks like when I do it. This is a copy of a copy. Someone traced it or pulled it off something else. See there?" I pointed, my fingertip almost touching the screen. "That little hitch in the stroke? That's from when I hit a spot of grease on a delivery receipt at my old job. I only did it once. They photocopied it on all subsequent forms. Whoever did this stole it from there or somewhere similar." Rachel stared at the signature, then at me, something like respect flickering in her eyes. "All right," she said quietly. "We'll mark this as a forged signature. That changes things. It changes everything," I said. She took a breath. "Here's what we're going to do, Mr. Miller. First, we'll freeze any online access to your accounts. I'm going to delete this profile entirely. If you ever want online access in the future, you can come in and set it up in person with a unique password that you choose and do not share with anyone." "I don't think that'll be necessary," I said. "If they want to rob me, they'll have to do it the old-fashioned way." At knife point, a corner of her mouth twitched despite herself. Second, she said, I'll submit a fraud report internally and recommend we notify our security department. And third, I strongly suggest you contact the police and file a report as well. Financial fraud is taken very seriously, especially when it involves a primary residence and a senior citizen. Senior citizen, I repeated. The label sat oddly on my tongue. When did that happen? Somewhere between the wedding check and the down payment, apparently. My thoughts flicked back to Adam's porch. You know your episodes have been getting worse. Chelsea reading about dementia. Equities and refinance plans whispered over clinking glasses. Rachel, I said slowly, if someone were trying to say, take out loans or lines of credit in my name and then claim later that I consented, what could they say to make that seem plausible? She tilted her head. They might say you're forgetful, that you asked them to handle things because you were confused by the process, that you didn't remember signing, that you misplaced paperwork, that sort of thing. And if they said that to you, I watched her face. Would you believe them? She held my gaze for a long moment. I can only speak for myself, she said finally. But when I see a customer in front of me, answering questions clearly, remembering dates and details, I trust what they tell me. She paused. However, she added, not everyone is as careful, which is why you should get everything documented. Police report, fraud alerts, maybe even legal advice. Create a paper trail that says you're competent and that you object to this. A paper trail. If they wanted to use paper against me, I would drown them in it. Can you print that forge form for me? I asked. And the application? Of course. She clicked. The printer whirred and spat out pages, hot and smelling faintly of burnt dust. She slid them into a manila folder and pushed it across the desk. Keep these safe, she said. And her eyes softened. I'm really sorry, Mr. Miller. Most of the time when we see something like this, it's family. I know, I said. Strangers at least have the decency to wear masks. She didn't laugh. I liked her better for that. When I left the credit union, the air outside felt sharper. I walked the 3 blocks to the bus stop instead of calling a cab, the folder tucked under my arm like a shield. On the ride home, I watched young people swipe their phones, scrolling through lives I would never see except as blur. A boy with pink hair slept against the window, headphones in. A woman in gym leggings typed furiously with both thumbs. A man my age stared out the window, but his eyes were empty. I wondered if his kids had ever tried to sell his roof out from under him. Back at Maple Street, I made myself a grilled cheese sandwich. 1 slice of real cheese, 1 slice of the kind that comes individually wrapped. I'm not proud, and ate it standing at the counter. The kitchen clock clicked off the minutes like a metronome. Then I picked up the phone again. This time, I didn't call a bank. I called a lawyer. I met Linda Chun in a cramped office above a laundromat on 14th Street. The smell of detergent and steam seeped through the floor, mingling with the faint scent of printer toner. Her nameplate on the door said, Legal Aid for Seniors, Attorney at Law. Next to it, someone had tacked up a cartoon of an elderly man wielding a walker like a weapon. Mr. Miller, she said, standing as I entered. She was in her 40s, maybe, with dark hair pulled back in a bun that had surrendered a few strands. Her suit jacket was slightly worn at the cuffs, but her eyes were sharp. On her desk, a ceramic mug shaped like a cat held an army of pens. George, I said, shaking her hand. Please. Mr. Miller is what the principal used to call me when Adam got into trouble in middle school. George it is, she said with a quick smile. Please have a seat. Do you mind if I take notes? Helps me keep things straight. By all means, I said. Somebody in this family should be allowed to write things down without forging them. She cocked her head, then nodded for me to start. It took me 20 minutes to get through everything. The wedding money, the down payment, the conversation on the porch, Tom's overheard remarks, the reverse mortgage brochure, the Hellick inquiry, the forged signature at the bank. She interrupted occasionally with precise questions. Do you have any power of attorney documents on file? She asked at one point. No, I said. Never sign anything like that. I figured as long as I could still dial the phone and tell time, I can sign my own name. Good, she said. That makes this both easier and more infuriating. She tapped her pen against the desk. Have you been to a doctor recently regarding your cognitive health? No, I said. Closest I've been is forgetting why I walked into a room. That's not new. I did that at 25 too. She smiled briefly. Any formal diagnoses? Dementia, Alzheimer's, anything like that? None. Any written record from family claiming you have such issues? Not that I know of, I said. Though if they're forging my signature, who knows what else they're writing on my behalf? She nodded, jotting something down. Okay, she said finally. Here's the good news. You caught this early. Nothing's been finalized. No liens, no disbursements. That means we're not trying to undo a mess. We're trying to prevent one. Legally, that's much easier. I assume the bad news is that my son is either a criminal or an idiot, I said. Possibly both, she replied dryly. But that's between your conscience and Thanksgiving dinner. My concern is your house. She leaned forward. We're going to do a few things. First, we document everything. I'll draft a statement for you summarizing what you've told me. Dates, times, conversations. You'll review and sign it. We'll attach copies of the forged documents, the bank letters, even that reverse mortgage brochure. She nodded at the folder on my lap. Second, she continued, we contact your bank formally, in writing, asserting that you did not authorize any online account or HELIC inquiry. We'll ask them to place a fraud alert and require in-person verification with ID for any major changes to your accounts or property liens. It sounds like they've already started that process verbally, but paper is king. Most kings I've known only pretended to listen to paper, I remarked. But go on. Third, she said, we notify the county recorder's office to flag your property for any suspicious activity. That way, if someone tries to record a lien or deed transfer without you present, it will raise immediate red flags. I hadn't even thought of that. Deed transfer, I repeated slowly. You think they go that far? She met my gaze. George, people have sold their parents' houses out from under them for less than what you've already given your son. Greed doesn't usually stop halfway down the slope. I looked at my hands, folded in my lap. The skin was thinner now, the veins too prominent. But the grip, when it needed to be, could still crush a cheap plastic pen. Is there, I asked, a way to make sure legally that even if I drop dead tomorrow, my house doesn't end up in my son's portfolio like some kind of consolation prize? Yes, she said. Several ways, actually. A will is one. A trust is better in many cases, especially if you want to skip a generation. Skip a generation, I repeated. Leave the house, or its value, directly to your grandson, she clarified, in a way that's protected from his parents' immediate reach. You can set conditions, age thresholds, education requirements, or just whenever Leo is legally an adult and not being manipulated by people who see him as a pipeline to your money. The bluntness surprised a laugh out of me. It turned into a cough halfway through, but it was still a laugh. I like you, I said. Good, she replied. You're going to like me even more when I tell you we can also prepare a declaration of capacity. Basically, you get evaluated by a doctor who confirms in writing that you are cognitively sound. We keep that on file. So if anyone later tries to claim you were confused or forgetful when you signed certain documents, like, say, a trust that cuts them out, we can show that no, you were very much aware and intentional. So we use their lie against them, I said. They want to say I'm losing my mind? Fine. I'll have doctors and lawyers line up to testify that my mind was sharp as a tack the day I decided they'd never see another cent. She tilted her head. Revenge isn't a legal term, she said, but I've seen it work wonders as motivation. What about criminal charges? I asked. If we can prove Adam set up that online account and forge my signature, we can file a police report, she said. Whether the district attorney decides to prosecute is another matter. Family cases are messy. There's often a reluctance to criminalize what people want to frame as misunderstandings or disputes. But a report on file can still help in civil matters. It shows a pattern. And if I don't want my son to go to jail? I asked. Then we build leverage, she said simply. You armor yourself financially and legally. If he wants to avoid potential charges, he backs off, returns anything he can, stays the hell away from your accounts. Sometimes the most effective punishment isn't a cell. It's a locked door he can't open anymore. I thought about Adam, standing in his doorway, telling me to leave my grandson's life like I was a delivery man with the wrong address. A locked door. Yes, that had a certain symmetry. Will he know about all this? I asked. The fraud alerts, the trust, the will. Some of it, she said. You'll want him to. There's no point setting a boundary no one knows is there. As for details, beneficiaries, amounts, that's up to you. I sat back, the chair creaking under my weight. Linda, I said, have you ever seen one of these situations end well? She considered. I've seen them end safely, she said. Sometimes that's the best we can aim for. As for, well, that depends on what you mean. Reconciliation? Epiphanies? Guilty children weeping and apologizing? That's rare. Good, I said. I'm too old for melodrama. She smiled briefly. What do you want? She asked. If you strip away what you think you should want as a father, what do you as a person want the outcome to be? I looked at the window. A laundry truck was backing up outside, the beep-beep audible even up here. I want my grandson to have a roof over his head someday that his parents can't gamble with, I said slowly. I want my house to belong to someone who won't see it as a stack of chips. And I want my son to understand that when you tell a man to leave, sometimes he takes more with him than you planned. She nodded. Okay, she said. Then here's what we'll do. Over the next hour, we built a strategy. We drafted a letter to First River Credit Union, formally asserting fraud and demanding heightened security measures. We prepared an affidavit summarizing my story, with room to attach Tom's statement once I convinced him to put it in writing. We discussed a living trust with Leo as the primary beneficiary and a neutral trustee, not Adam, not Chelsea. Can Tom serve as trustee? I asked at one point, half joking. He seems to have more integrity than anyone with my last name. He can, she said, but that's a big ask. There are also professional trustees, or we can appoint a trust company. We'll weigh the options. By the time I left, my head hurt and my hand ached from signing preliminary forms. Not forged this time. Every stroke was mine, deliberate. On the bus home, I watched my reflection in the window. I didn't look like the kind of man who orchestrates traps. I looked like what I was, a widower with tufting white hair, a brown jacket, and a plastic folder clutched to his chest. But somewhere behind my eyes, gears that had been idle for too long were turning. At home, I made myself a cup of tea, real leaves this time, not the bag stuff, and sat at the kitchen table. The reverse mortgage brochure still lay there. I picked it up, folded it neatly, and slid it into the folder with all the other papers. Evidence. On Tuesday, I made a doctor's appointment. Cognitive evaluation. I aced every test they tossed at me, recited backword lists, drew clocks, answered questions about dates and current events. The doctor, a man young enough to be my grandson, looked faintly disappointed that he couldn't diagnose me with anything more profitable than mild arthritis. You're sharp, Mr. Miller, he said, signing the report. Whatever else you're dealing with, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Oh, they'll tell me, I said. They just won't be able to prove it. On Wednesday, I knocked on Tom's door at Silver Oaks. He answered with a toddler on his hip and a smear of peanut butter on his shirt. Mr. Miller, he said, surprised. Is everything okay? No, I said pleasantly, but it will be. Can I borrow 10 minutes in your memory? I laid everything out at his kitchen table. The attempted helic, the forged signature, the trip to the lawyer. Tom's eyes got wider with every page. I knew they were being sketchy, he said when I finished. But this, with your house. Man, I need your help, I said. Linda, the lawyer, says a witness statement from you could be very useful to corroborate the refinance conversation. The part about telling people I'm losing it. He shifted the toddler, a little girl with his eyes, to the other hip. You want me to put this in writing, he said, with my name on it? Yes. He glanced toward the wall he shared with Adam's unit. They won't see it, I added quietly. At least not right away. But if this ever goes to court or to some kind of settlement, your statement could make a big difference. He bounced the toddler. She giggled, grabbing his nose. Look, I said, if you say no, I understand. Nobody wants to be in the middle of someone else's family implosion. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Your son put me in the middle when he started talking about robbing you loud enough for the HOA to hear. He said, I'll talk to your lawyer. She can email me the form. He scribbled his address and phone number on a notepad and slid it to me. Thank you, I said. He nodded. No problem. Then he hesitated. For what it's worth, Leo's a good kid. He asks about you. A lot. Chelsea tells him you're too tired to visit. That you get confused. The words felt like sand in my mouth. I'm not the one confused, I said. But I'll let them keep thinking that. For now. Because traps work best when the prey thinks they're the hunter. Leo turned 4 on Saturday, May 21st. I know, because I wrote the date on the wall calendar by the fridge in bold red letters. Leo 4. I'd done the same every year. His first birthday, we'd had cake in my house. Margaret's old recipe, lopsided but delicious. His second, I'd been invited to their place, relegated to a corner near the drinks table, while Chelsea's friends talked about juice cleanses. His third, I'd been too much trouble to drive across town, if you believe Chelsea's text. For his fourth, no invitation came. What did come, on May 15th, was a group text Adam sent to family, which meant me and Chelsea's parents. Leo's party, May 21st at 2 p.m., Silver Oaks Clubhouse, it read. Theme, dinosaurs. Gifts not necessary. Gifts not necessary. They never are, for people who think they're entitled to everything by default. I stared at the text on my flip phone. Adam had insisted on getting me a smartphone once. I returned it, said I didn't need a pocket computer, and considered my options. I could ignore it, stay home, make myself spaghetti, watch reruns. Or I could go, not to celebrate, not anymore, but to present a very different kind of gift. On Friday, I met with Linda one more time. The trust documents were drafted. Leo Miller Trust, with a professional trust company named as trustee. The terms were clear. Upon my death, my house on Maple Street would be sold, and the proceeds, minus a small sum set aside for my funeral costs and an even smaller sum earmarked for a scholarship at the vocational school I'd attended, would go into the trust. The funds would be used solely for Leo's education, housing, or starting a business at the trustee's discretion. Not $1 could be accessed by Adam or Chelsea. My will mirrored the trust. If Leo predeceased me, a thought I couldn't linger on, the remainder would go to charity. Adam was mentioned only once, in a clause explicitly stating that he was to inherit nothing, for reasons known to him. You're sure about this? Linda asked, pen poised. Yes, I said. If I change my mind, I can always revise it, as long as my hand still works. We arranged for the documents to be signed in front of a notary who looked astonished at my steady signature. Linda made copies. One set went into her file. One set went into the folder I now kept in a locking metal box under my bed, next to Margaret's letters. Remember, Linda said as I stood to go, you don't owe them an explanation. But if you choose to give one, keep it simple. Facts, not accusations. The more emotional it gets, the more they'll try to spin it as you being unstable. I appreciate the warning, I said. Unfortunately for them, I'm at an age where I've run out of patience for theatrics. On Saturday, I put on my good jacket again. The sky was thick with clouds, the air heavy. Thunderstorms were forecast for late afternoon. I picked up the same blue gift bag with the plush dinosaur. I kept it on a chair in the corner of the living room for weeks, unable to bring myself to put it away. Leo shouldn't be punished for his parents' crimes, I told myself. The clubhouse at Silver Oaks was exactly what I expected. Beige walls, rental chairs, a kitchen with stainless steel appliances no one had time to use. A banner that said, Roar, you're 4, hung crookedly over a table groaning under the weight of cupcakes frosted green and brown like some kind of sugary swamp. Children ran in noisy circles, some with paper dinosaur masks on their faces. Parents clustered in small groups, holding compostable cups of soda, exchanging small talk about preschools and screen time limits. I stood in the doorway a moment, the gift bag suddenly very heavy. Dad! Adam's voice came from my left. He stood near the drinks table, wearing a t-shirt with a cartoon T-Rex lifting weights, some kind of joke about Saurosaurus. Beside him, Chelsea wore a tight green dress and a plastic tiara with little glittering dinosaurs on it. Hey, I said, happy birthday to the kid. Chelsea's smile didn't reach her eyes. Oh, she said, you made it. Yes, I replied. I was invited, remember? Family text. Unless that was a typo. A brief, flickering unease crossed Adam's face. Well, sure, he said quickly. Of course. We just weren't sure you'd be up for it. With your, you know, energy levels. I had enough energy to take 3 buses, I said. So I'd say I'm doing all right. Leo spotted me then. He was standing by the cupcake table, frosting smeared on one cheek, a paper dinosaur tail tied around his waist with elastic. His eyes lit up. "Grandpa," he yelled, barreling toward me. For a terrified half-second, I thought Adam would step between us. He didn't. Maybe even he sensed how bad that would look in public. Leo slammed into my legs. I crouched, carefully my knees protesting, and hugged him. He smelled like vanilla frosting and Play-Doh. "You came," he said, voice muffled in my jacket. "Mommy said you might forget." "Your mommy was wrong," I said softly. "I wouldn't forget this for anything." I handed him the bag. "For you." He tore into it with 4-year-old enthusiasm. When the dinosaur emerged, he squealed. "RAWR," he yelled, making it bite my hand. "Pretty cool, huh?" I said. "He's got a secret power, you know." Leo's eyes went wide. "What power?" "He remembers everything," I said, "even when other people say he doesn't." The words sailed right over his head, as intended. They landed squarely in Adam's. "Leo, honey," Chelsea called, her voice overly sweet. "Go show Grandma your new toy." Leo ran off, roaring. I straightened slowly, my back complaining. Adam cleared his throat. "Can we talk?" he muttered, jerking his head toward a corner. "By all means," I said. "I love a good corner." We moved near a stack of folded chairs. The din of the party softened, but didn't disappear. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, smile plastered on his face for anyone glancing over. "You didn't confirm. I thought you'd with everything going on." "With everything going on," I interrupted. "You thought I'd stay home and let you and your wife finish building the narrative about the senile old man who forgets signing away his house." Color rose in his cheeks. "Dad," he said in a warning tone, "this is not the place." "On the contrary," I replied, "it's exactly the place. Your neighbor Tom says sound carries around here. I thought we'd give it something worth carrying for once." He startled, eyes widening. "Tom?" "Yes," I said. "The man whose kitchen wall has heard more about my finances than I have." His jaw clenched. He had no right. He had every right to tell me my own son was plotting to strip mine my house. I snapped, my voice low but sharp. "A right you forfeited when you tried to do it quietly." He glanced around, shifting from foot to foot. "You're making a scene," he muttered. "Not yet," I said. "This is me being courteous. The scene comes later, if necessary." From the other side of the room, someone started singing Happy Birthday slightly off-key. The sound wafted over, absurdly cheerful. "Adam," I said, calmer now, "we need to talk about the HELIC application you filed in my name, and the reverse mortgage inquiry, and the forged signature on the bank's online authorization form." He swallowed, throat working. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The bank does," I said. "So does their fraud department. So does my lawyer." He flinched at the word lawyer. "You misunderstood," he said quickly. "I was just looking into options for you. To help you. You're sitting on all that equity, and with your fixed income, it doesn't make sense for you to. You did it without telling me." I cut in. "You created an online profile under my name. You answered security questions only you would know the answers to, because you've seen my mail. You requested a line of credit for $160,000 against a house you do not own." He opened his mouth, but I kept going. "And you did it," I said, "while telling your neighbors and your own son that I'm too confused to remember things. That I have episodes. That I might not recall signing paperwork." His face went pale. "Who told you that?" "Evidence," I said, "which is what Tom will be, in writing, if this ever goes to court." "Court?" he echoed weakly. "Dad, come on. Don't be dramatic. We're family." "Exactly," I said, "which is the only reason you're standing here at a birthday party and not being interviewed in a police station." His eyes darted toward Chelsea across the room. She was watching us, her smile tight, one hand gripping a plastic cup hard enough to whiten her knuckles. "Look," he said, lowering his voice further. I was just seeing what was possible. Nothing went through, right? Nobody got hurt. Yet, I said, that's like saying you just tried the doorknob on a stranger's house at midnight but didn't go inside. So no harm done. If you just let me explain, he pleaded. I was going to tell you. I swear. But with your, how you get about money. How I get. I barked a short laugh. A couple of guests glanced over. I lowered my volume again. You mean how I worked 45 years climbing through attics, crawling under houses, hauling cable in the rain, so you could have orthodontics and summer camps? That's how I get about money. It's not like that, he said. I just thought. No, I said. You didn't think. You assumed. You assumed that because I still use a landline and write checks at the grocery store, I wouldn't understand what an online helic was. You assumed that because I misplaced my glasses, I must be senile enough to forget signing away my house. You assumed that because I love you, I'd be too ashamed to call what you're doing by its real name, stealing. The word landed between us like a drop tool. Dad, he whispered, keep your voice down. Why? I asked. Afraid your in-laws will hear that their golden son-in-law tried to commit fraud? His eyes narrowed. You're twisting this, he said. We're drowning over here. Daycare, student loans, medical bills. You sit alone in a house that's paid off with no one to take care of you. I was trying to find a way that worked for everyone. Everyone meaning you, I said. Not Leo. Not me. Certainly not the law. Thunder rumbled in the distance outside. Appropriate timing, for once. Dad, he said, jaw tight, I think you should go, before you say something you can't take back. On the contrary, I replied, I came here specifically to say things I can't and won't take back. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the manila envelope I brought. The one with copies of the trust documents, the bank's fraud letter, the signed doctor's report declaring my cognitive capacity within normal limits for age. I held up the envelope. You see this? I said. He looked at it warily. What is it? Your future, I said. Or rather, the empty spot where your future used to be. He scoffed. What are you talking about? On Tuesday, I said, I established the Leo Miller Trust. Upon my death, my house will be sold, and every cent will go into that trust for your son. Not for you. Not for Chelsea. For Leo. To be administered by people who don't see him as a walking ATM. He blinked. You can't do that. I just did, I said. Legally, properly, and with a doctor's letter confirming I was of sound mind when I signed. They even gave me a little pen. Very official. His mouth opened, closed. For once, he was the one searching for words. And you, I continued, you, Adam, inherit nothing. No house, no cash, no equity. Not even my tools. Those are going to vocational school, where some kid who actually worked for his future can learn to do something useful. His face went blotchy. This is because of one mistake, he said. You're going to throw away everything because you're too proud to admit you need help. I don't need help paying my bills, I said. I need help getting my only son to stop acting like a vulture circling a man who hasn't even lain down yet. Nearby, Chelsea's father, a man with a red face and a polo shirt embroidered with a golf club logo, glanced over, frowning. I also filed a fraud report with the bank, I added, and spoke with a lawyer. If you try anything like this again, anything, they will pursue criminal charges. I've made that clear in writing. Dad, come on, he said, voice rising despite himself. You're really going to sick lawyers on your own family? Yes, I said simply, because my own family tried to sick a reverse mortgage company on me. I'm just returning the favor. Chelsea chose that moment to approach, smile brittle. Is everything okay over here? She asked in a tone that said she already knew it wasn't. Depends who you ask, I said. From my end, things are looking up. Your father is making some pretty wild accusations, Adam said to her. About us. About money. Chelsea's eyes flicked to the envelope in my hand. Mr. Miller, she said, voice syrupy but eyes hard, we've always tried to help you. We talked to the bank because we were worried. You live alone. The house is falling apart. You can't keep up with. The roof doesn't leak, I said. The furnace works. The only thing falling apart in my life is the illusion that my son sees me as anything other than capital. A couple nearby parents had stopped pretending not to listen. One of the kids tugged on Leo's sleeve. Leo watched us from a few feet away, his dinosaur toy clutched in both hands, eyes wide. Chelsea lowered her voice. "You're confused," she said. "You've been forgetful for months. You don't remember phone calls, FaceTimes." "Funny you should mention that," I said. "My doctor finds my memory quite adequate. And your neighbor Tom remembers that you said I was losing it, and that if I ever protested, you just claim I forgot signing paperwork." Color drained from her face. "You talked to Tom?" she said. "Yes," I replied. "He'll be talking to my lawyer too." She turned on Adam. "You told me the bank stuff was handled," she hissed quietly. "You said he didn't even know. He wasn't supposed to," Adam muttered. "The application didn't go through. This is all just. Attempted fraud still counts," I said. "Your problem is that you thought I was too old to notice, or too ashamed to admit my own son would do something like this." I looked between them. "You two keep saying I'm confused," I said. "So let me be very clear. I know exactly what you tried to do. I know exactly what I've done in response. And I know exactly who will be taken care of when I'm gone." I glanced at Leo, then back at them. "It won't be you." Adam took a step closer, fists clenched. For a heartbeat, I thought he'd actually hit me. Then he seemed to remember where we were. His gaze darted to the watching faces. "Maybe you should go," Chelsea said through gritted teeth, the smile having finally fallen away. "For Leo's sake. You're upsetting him." Leo's eyes were big and confused. He hugged the dinosaur tighter. "Leo," I called gently. "Come here, buddy." Chelsea tried to catch his arm, but he slipped past her. "Yes, Grandpa?" he asked, looking up at me. I crouched again, ignoring the stab in my knees. "I just wanted to tell you something important," I said. He nodded solemnly. At 4, everything adults say, with that tone, sounds like an incantation. "No matter what you hear," I said quietly, "you remember this. You are worth more than any house, more than any bank account. And when you're older, there will be something waiting for you that nobody can take away." "Okay." He frowned a little. "Like a present?" "Exactly," I said. "A very long-delayed present." He smiled. "Okay." I hugged him, feeling his small ribs under my hands. "Love you, kiddo," I said. "Love you too," he replied automatically, then ran back toward the cupcakes, already distracted by a friend holding 2 in one hand. I straightened, turned back to Adam and Chelsea. "I'll go," I said. "Not because you told me to, because I've already done what I came here to do." "What, ruin our son's birthday?" Chelsea snapped. "No," I said. "I just ruined your retirement plan." I walked toward the exit. As I reached the door, thunder cracked outside, loud enough to make a couple of kids squeal. Rain battered the windows. Behind me, I heard Adam call my name, voice tight. I didn't turn around. They'd wanted me to leave. So I did. You'd think that after a scene like that, the fallout would be immediate and dramatic. Police sirens, court dates, tearful confrontations. What actually happened was slower, pettier, and somehow more exhausting. On Monday, May 23rd, Linda called. "First River Credit Union received our letter," she said. "Their legal department has officially classified the Hellick inquiry as fraudulent. They've closed and archived the online profile, placed a permanent note on your file requiring in-person verification for any home-related transactions, and agreed to notify you in writing of any future attempts." "Good," I said. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of lukewarm oatmeal, the morning sun hitting the chipped mug of coffee, just right to spotlight the stain. "They also," she continued, "have opened an internal investigation to determine where the online access originated. They'll cooperate with any law enforcement inquiry." "Speaking of," I said, "how did our friends in blue take the idea of a nearly, but not quite committed crime?" "The detective I spoke with," she said dryly, "used the phrase family matter about 3 times, which is never encouraging. But he agreed to take your statement and open a case. They may not prosecute, but the report will exist. That's valuable in itself." "Paper trail," I said. "Exactly." In the weeks that followed, envelopes accumulated in my mailbox like a slow snowfall. A letter from First River confirming the fraud alert. A letter from the county recording office acknowledging the fraud warning on my property. A copy of the police report, complete with case number. Linda had me start a binder. Tab sections, bank, legal, medical. Everything neatly punched and filed. It felt perversely like homework, but it also felt like armor. I heard nothing from Adam. Not a call, not a text, not even a passive-aggressive email with a forwarded article about elder mood swings. I did, however, hear from Chelsea. Once. It was June 3 RD, 7:17 p.m. I was microwaving leftovers. Spaghetti again. Old men are creatures of habit and pasta deals are cheap. When the phone rang. Not the landline. The old flip phone, buzzing angrily on the counter. I glanced at the screen. Chelsea, it said. I considered letting it go to voicemail. Curiosity won. Hello, I said. How could you? She demanded. No greeting. No preamble. Good evening, Chelsea, I replied. I'm well. Thanks for asking. You humiliated us, she snapped. In front of our friends. Our families. Leo's teacher was there. Do you know what it's like to have people whispering that your husband tried to steal from his own father? I imagine, I said, it's very similar to what it's like to know he actually did. You're unbelievable, she said. You twisted everything. We were trying to help you. You live in that falling-apart house with no one, stuck in the 70s. We wanted you to have options. Security. My house is paid off, I said. That's more security than a lot of people your age have. Money isn't everything, she retorted. Then it's curious how much of your life revolves around it, I said. She sucked in a breath. You're punishing Adam because you're lonely, she said. Because Margaret died and you don't know who to be without her. The mention of my wife's name was a deliberate slap. I felt it, but I also felt how much less it hurt coming from someone who'd barely known her. Margaret, I said slowly, raised a son who, for most of his life, was kind, thoughtful, who used to cry if he thought he'd disappointed me. I don't know who raised the man I've been dealing with lately, but it wasn't her. You think you're some kind of hero, she sneered, leaving everything to Leo like you're rescuing him. Newsflash, when that trust money comes in, we'll be his parents. We'll control it. You can't cut us out of his life. Actually, I said, I can. And more importantly, I can cut you out of my life. Which I have. She made a strangled sound. You can't just decide. You told Leo the first was too tired to visit, I said. You told people I was confused, had episodes. You tried to build a story where I was incompetent so you could run my finances like a side hustle. You made a decision. I'm just making mine. There was a pause. You'll die alone, she said finally, voice suddenly cold. In that musty little house with all your stupid papers. And when you do, Leo won't even remember you. You're doing this for a kid who will barely know your name. That one hit harder than I'd expected. I swallowed. Maybe, I said. Maybe not. But I'd rather die alone with my integrity than surrounded by people who practice their grief faces in the mirror to see how much they can squeeze out of the casket. She let out an ugly little laugh. You're sick, she said. We're done here. For once, I said, we agree. She hung up. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint hiss of sauce in the microwave. I took the spaghetti out, ate it standing at the counter, tasting none of it. I slept badly that night. Dreams of doors closing, of signatures sliding off pages, of Leo standing on my porch knocking while I couldn't move to answer. In the morning, I woke to a text from an unknown number. Dad, it's Adam, it read. I'm sorry about yesterday. I think we should take some space. Maybe revisit this in a few months when things are calmer. I looked at the words, take some space, and almost laughed. As if space were something he could grant me like a loan. I didn't reply. Summer crept in. The maple tree in the front yard exploded into green. I oiled the squeaky hinges on the screen door. I patched a crack in the driveway with a bag of cold patch asphalt that promised easy fix and delivered hours of back pain. I went to the doctor for my annual checkup. Blood pressure, slightly high. Cholesterol, surprisingly decent. Cognitive function, still annoyingly intact. Any changes in your mood? The doctor asked. I'm angrier, I said. Does that count? He scribbled something. Any thoughts of harming yourself or others? Not myself, I said. He looked up. I let him wonder which half of the question I hadn't answered. In July, I got a call from Linda. Remember that detective who was reluctant to get involved? She asked. Yes. He called me, she said. First River security report showed that the Hellick inquiry and online profile were created from an IP address associated with Adam's home. Combined with your statement and Tom's, they're considering formal charges. Identity theft, attempted fraud. You want to know if you wanted to pursue this to the fullest extent. His words, not mine. I sat down slowly. What did you say? I asked. I told him it was your decision, she said, and that you might be open to alternatives. Alternatives. This is where you talk about restorative justice and keeping families out of the system, I said. This is where I talk about leverage, she replied. If Adam is smart, he'll agree to sign a formal acknowledgement of wrongdoing, a no-contact order regarding your finances, maybe even a restitution agreement for some of the money you gave him, in exchange for you not pressing for criminal charges. Restitution, I said. As in, he start paying me back. Yes, she said. Slowly, probably, but on paper, with consequences if he doesn't. The idea of Adam writing checks back to me, even small ones, had a certain sour appeal. And if I say no? I asked. Then the DA decides whether to press charges, she said. You might get your day in court. You might watch your son in handcuffs. Or you might watch the case get dropped. There's no guarantee, only more strain. I thought about it for a long moment. He's already lost the house, I said. The future income, the easy path. Maybe that's enough. It's not just about punishment, she said. It's about making it harder for him to do this to someone else. I pictured Adam at 50, trying to convince Leo that Grandpa's trust money was really family money. All right, I said, if they're willing to draft something ironclad, admitting what he did, agreeing never to access my accounts or property, accepting the trust and will is final, I'll consider skipping the courtroom. I'll tell the detective, she said. A week later, she called back. Adam has agreed, she said. His lawyer practically did it for him. He signed an acknowledgement today. I'll mail you a copy. When it arrived, I read it slowly at the kitchen table. I, Adam Miller, it began, acknowledge that I created an online banking profile in my father's name without his explicit informed consent and initiated a home equity line of credit inquiry on his property without full authorization. Legal language carefully phrased. Not quite an apology, but close enough to I try to steal from you that I could accept it. At the bottom, his signature. Real or forged at this point, who could tell? Linda assured me it was witnessed. I slid it into the binder under the legal tab. Armor, one more layer. Life settled into a new pattern after that. Quieter in some ways. Lonely, yes, but the loneliness was different now. Less like being forgotten by accident, more like choosing who I'd allow to sit beside me in the dark. I filled my time with small things. Fixing the loose cabinet door in the kitchen. Planting tomatoes in a raised bed out back. Volunteering once a week at the vocational school's electrical class, showing kids how not to get themselves killed with a multimeter. The instructor, a woman my granddaughter's age, if I'd had one, introduced me as Mr. Miller, who worked in the field longer than most of you have been alive. The kids laughed. I showed them how to strip wire without nicking it, the way my first foreman had taught me. One day, a quiet boy with bitten nails asked, "Why are you here? You don't get paid, right?" "No," I said. "I don't." "So why?" he persisted. I looked at the tangle of wires in his hands, the way his brow furrowed over a simple circuit. "Because someone did it for me once," I said, "and I want at least one person in this town to owe their career to something other than their parents' bank account." He nodded slowly, not fully understanding yet. He would. The first time I saw Leo again after the dinosaur party was almost a year later. By then, the maple tree had gone through 2 cycles, lush green to blazing orange to bare branches and back again. My calendar squares were filled with small notations. Doctor's appointments, library due dates, Linda meetings, shop, light bulbs replace porch step. Little anchors against the drift. I was leaving the grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon in April, discount day, 10% off for seniors. Might as well cash in on something, when I heard a familiar laugh. Children's laughs all have that high bell-like edge, but every kid's is slightly different. Leo's had a little hiccup in the middle, like his lungs couldn't contain all the joy at once. I turned my head. In a playground across the street, behind the chain-link fence, a group of kids clustered around a jungle gym. One of them, a little taller now, but still with that same messy dark hair, was hanging from the monkey bars, legs kicking. A plastic dinosaur dangled from his pocket by a loop of string. I walked closer to the fence, grocery bag in hand. Leo dropped from the bars, landed on his feet, and turned. His eyes passed over me, uncomprehending for half a second. Then they widened. "Grandpa," he said. He said it like a question, like a memory, trying to find its way back to the front of his mind. "Hey, kiddo," I said. He ran to the fence, fingers slipping through the metal diamonds. "You disappeared," he said bluntly. "Mom said you moved away." "Did she?" I replied. "Well, my mail still comes to the same place." He frowned. "Why didn't you come to my birthday?" My heart squeezed. "Which one?" I asked lightly. "I missed a few." "5," he said. "We had a robot cake." "Bet that was cool," I said. "I'll have to settle for hearing about it instead. You can't always have everything." He studied me with a seriousness that felt far older than his years. "Mom gets mad when I talk about you," he said. "She says you're, what was the word?" His brows knitted. Unstable," I supplied. "Yeah," he said. "That." I huffed. "Well, I did yell at a man in a dinosaur shirt once," I said. "So maybe she's not entirely wrong." He giggled, the hiccup laugh intact. "Is it true you forgot things?" he asked. "She said you forgot you called me and said mean stuff." "No," I said. "I didn't forget. I never did it." He nodded slowly, as if filing that away. "I got a letter," he said suddenly, "with my name on it. It had your name too. Mom took it. She said it was adult stuff." My pulse stepped up. The trust company, I realized. They'd started sending annual statements. Probably addressed Leo Miller, beneficiary. "Grown-ups like to keep money a secret," I said, "especially when it isn't really theirs." He tilted his head. "Is it mine?" "Some of it will be," I said. "Someday, when you're old enough. It's meant to help you do something you care about. Go to school, start a business, buy a little place with a decent fridge." He nodded, pleased by the idea of ownership of an appliance. "Does Dad know?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "He knows." "Is that why he's mad at you?" he asked. "One of many reasons," I said. "Most of them boil down to the same thing. He thought something belonged to him, and I disagreed." A whistle blew across the playground. A teacher, or daycare worker, I couldn't tell, clapped her hands. "Okay, kids, time to line up," she called. Leo hesitated. "Will I see you again?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "That's up to your parents. But whether you see me or not, I'm thinking about you." He looked at me a second longer, then stuck his little hand through the fence as far as it would go. I pressed my palm against his, chain link between us. "Bye, Grandpa," he said. "Bye, Leo," I replied. He ran off to join the line. The teacher didn't even glance at me. To her, I was just some old man loitering near a playground, which objectively I was. On the way home, my grocery bag seemed lighter. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the binder open to the trust section. I thumbed through the pages, stopping at the clause that named Leo as beneficiary. Upon the settler's death, it read, "The trustee shall distribute trust assets for the health, education, maintenance, and support of Leo Miller." Legalese. Dry. But underneath, an old man's last stubborn act of love codified. The phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID. It said unknown. Normally, I don't pick those up. Telemarketers, scams, extended car warranty, nonsense. On a strange impulse, I lifted the receiver. "Hello." Silence. Then a breath. "Dad." "Adam." I closed my eyes briefly. "Open them." "Yes," I said. "I heard you ran into Leo today," he said. "At the park." "Word travels fast," I replied, "especially when little kids are involved. They still tell the truth more often than not. Enjoy it. That phase doesn't last." He sighed. "Look, I don't want to fight." "Then don't," I said. "We can end the call right here." He ignored that. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, "about everything that happened, about what I did. I know the acknowledgement I signed didn't really express." He groped for the word. "Remorse." I supplied. "Yeah," he said. "That." I waited. "I was scared," he said finally. "About money. About the future. About failing my family. I made some bad choices. I justified them. I told myself you didn't really understand what you had. that you didn't need it the way we did. Honesty suits you, I said. You should try more often. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said quickly. I know I don't deserve that. I don't want Leo to grow up thinking you abandoned him. I didn't, I said. You did that when you shut the door. I told him you moved away, he admitted. It seemed easier. For whom? I asked. You? So you didn't have to explain why Grandpa suddenly stopped coming around. Silence. What do you want, Adam? I asked. In concrete terms. Money? That ship has sailed and sunk. An apology? You're a little late to the party you kicked me out of. A clean conscience? I can't give you that. He trailed off. Started again. I want to know if there's any way back from this. I stared at the kitchen wall. A little crack in the plaster near the clock had grown longer over the years. I kept meaning to patch it. I never did. For you and me? I asked. Or for you and my will? For us, he said. And if that leads somewhere, then maybe... I see, I said. In that order, of course. Dad, come on, he said, frustration creeping back in. You think I'm just calling because I'm worried about some stupid trust? We're drowning over here. Daycare is... He cut himself off. Forget it. That's not why I called. At least he'd realized how that sounded. Adam, I said, when you told me to leave that day, did you really think, that I was just going to go home and wait to die quietly so you could have what you wanted? He was quiet a long time. I didn't think at all, he said finally. That's the first truly accurate thing you said in a while, I replied. He huffed a sad little laugh. You haven't lost your edge, he said. No, I said. I just learned where to aim it. We sat with the line buzzing softly between us. I don't know if there's a way back, I said. Trust isn't drywall. You can't spackle over the holes and hope no one notices. It's more like wiring. Once you've melted it, you can't just wrap some tape around and call it safe. You have to replace it entirely. And some systems are too old to rewire. Are you saying there's no chance? He asked. I'm saying, I replied, that any chance there is doesn't start with my will. It starts with you. Showing up for Leo. Being honest with him. Not using him as a bargaining chip. Not lying about me to cover yourself. So what? He asked. We just go on like this? Separate? You watching from a distance? Maybe, I said. Maybe someday we sit in the same room again without legal documents between us. Maybe not. That's not a promise I can make tonight because you got nostalgic. I heard him swallow. I miss you, he said quietly. I closed my eyes again. Let the words roll over me. Remembered a 6-year-old Adam clinging to my leg on the first day of school. A 16-year-old Adam asking me to stay away from the mall when he was there with friends. A 30-year-old Adam telling me I didn't need to worry about him anymore, that he'd take care of things. I miss the person I thought you were, I said. I don't know if I miss the man who tried to sell my roof. Maybe someday you'll introduce me to someone in between. I'm trying, he said. Good, I replied. Try harder. For Leo's sake. Another pause. If we, he fumbled. If things change. Can I call you? You just did, I said. You didn't ask permission. He gave a small, self-conscious laugh. Yeah. Listen, I said. You want something concrete? Here it is. I won't change the trust. Leo keeps what's his. That's non-negotiable. As for the rest, my time, my phone line, my presence, those are pay-as-you-go now. You put in the work, maybe you get something back. You go back to treating me like a walking estate. The line cuts off. Understand? Yes, he said, voice small. Good, I said. We're done for tonight. You tell Leo the first said happy birthday for every year I missed, and that I still have his dinosaur on my couch. I will, he said. I hung up before he could say anything else. The house was quiet. I could hear the fridge kick on, the little rattle in the vent I'd been meaning to fix. I walked into the living room. The blue dinosaur toy sat on the end of the couch. Leo had left it there the last time he'd visited before everything blew up. I'd never had the heart to move it. I picked it up now, turned it in my hands. Leave, my son had said once. So I had. I'd left behind the version of myself who believed that blood automatically meant loyalty. I'd left behind any illusion that my house was a shared family asset. I left the door of my life cracked, but only for the people willing to knock instead of pick the lock. I set the dinosaur back down, its stitched smile tilted toward the ceiling. I'd also left something else. Not for Adam. For Leo. For the kid on the other side of the chain-link fence whose hand had pressed against mine. One day, years from now, he'd sit at some desk in some office and sign a form releasing the fund from a trust he didn't know existed yet. Maybe he'd use it to pay rent on a dingy first apartment. Maybe buy tools. Maybe to escape. I'd be gone by then. But the choice I made would still be there. Ink on paper, outlasting all our arguments. My son had told me to leave. In the end, I did. I left him outside the will, outside the trust, outside the part of myself that still believed he'd put me before my balance sheet. And I left something better in my place. A locked door he couldn't open. And the key, resting quietly in my grandson's future.